The early bird gets the worm. I will sleep when I'm dead. Burn the midnight oil to get things done. I'm sure you've heard these phrases. They are part of our growing up and the expectation society sets for us. They are anti-laziness. Growing up, I thought they came from my parents, but it was really more from society at large. I had friends whose parents told them with anger in their voices not to be lazy and not to embarrass them. This morning we heard some of the words of Tricia Hersey, the founder of NAP Ministry, in our first reading. NAP Ministry is a concept that she created that comes from her experiencing creating space for her own naps and realizing that doing so was creating resistance to the aspects of culture that try to use us up. As an African American woman whose ancestors were slaves, Hershey's comments about using a person, the using of a body, by someone who has more power, has even more resonance and meaning, as something that needs to be resisted in order for people to thrive. Some of you may be familiar with the term grind culture. Grind culture is the belief that people must work hard to be productive to prove their worth. Grinding refers to the long hours many workers devote their lives to make a living. Similarly, hustle culture refers to the mentality that one must work all day, every day in pursuit of professional goals. Even our children are forced into it when they turn 5 years old. It's the daily grind of school, which means we are waking many children rather than allowing them to wake up when they would naturally. School is not only something required by our culture, but the way our whole culture is set up now, it's a place where children need to be so their parents can work. While homeschooling is an option, it doesn't work for many families. So getting children up, dressed, and out the door is a forced, stressful daily task that can take over the family's life and emotional reserves before the day even begins. American families lack support. Several decades ago, many decades ago, we moved from multiple generations living together. So that built-in support no longer exists for most. There may be help, but usually there's a financial cost, which falls directly on the parents. We truly need multiple layers of help for every family to make the job of raising children not one of extreme stress. In the book, Everyday Utopia, What 2,000 Years of Wild Experiments Can Teach Us About the Good Life, the author, Kristen Godsey, talks about examples of communal living over the centuries. She questions the intelligence of a choice where families live in their individual homes and also have parents who need to work outside the home. Even if there are two parents, it is an exhausting task. And what about single parents? While we still have some communal living, like when we live on college campuses, and we have it towards the end of our lives in retirement homes, we fail at the time adults need the most support to provide this kind of living arrangement. Instead, families are having to do everything on their own. And this kind of individualistic living is also hard on our earth. Every individual family needs their own lawnmower, hammer, coffee maker, washing machine. Everyone needs their own air conditioning, electrical line to their home, computer, even game of Monopoly. The list goes on, and it's ridiculous. The first local co-housing opportunity is starting in Houston now, a place where these items could be shared as well as one weekly meal, and the support of a community of neighbors who have a built-in expectation of sharing time and care. Last I heard, there were still more spaces available. These situations are a part of a cultural backdrop for Tricia Hersey's NAP ministry. What a concept, NAP ministry. Fascinating that she chose the word ministry, right? It brings so much meaning and depth. Ministry, what does it mean to you? For Unitarian Universalists, it's shared. We are talking about ministry that's beyond the specific career role of ministers or the type of daily work they do. Of course, they do participate in this other ministry. I see ministry as the act of living out our values in the world. Living out our values, sometimes, dare I say, often, means that we are rebels, that our values don't fit in with the larger culture. This is the part of this is the part that draws to Hersey's NAP ministry. NAP ministry is anti-hierarchical. It is rebellion against the proposed authority of those with money and other kinds of power owning our time and our bodies. Human beings are not machines. We are animals. We are mammals. What do you think about when you think about mammals? Maybe play, chasing each other, finding food, having clever ways to create cover in a storm, sleeping in a nest with their families. So we are mammals, and we need play and food and shelter and cuddling and the care of friends and family. I read in the New York Times recently a piece they did interviewing young adults who had just graduated from college or other training. One quote made me remember that time in my life. There's a great desire to grow up and get out from under the wing of parents, to be on one's own. It is a time when there are lots of choices, and so it seems, but in reality, it requires more responsibility than freedom. Paying rent, making your own meals, figuring out how you will get to work, allowing commute time, working all the hours that the job requires, and there's looking presentable, which for whatever expectations you have in that setting, and that means regular laundry. The quote in the Times said this about this one person that they were interviewing. She had been waiting a long time to be out on her own, but once she was doing it, she said it was horrible. In China, there's a whole movement called lying flatism, and it seems to be the trend that's showing up in the United States too. Have you heard of this? Lying flatism. Some of you have. It coincides with other trends like quiet quitting, the great resignation, the barely minimum Monday. In China, the traditional mainstream culture promotes working hard for the good of the state. The saying there is, work hard, be thankful, work more, then die. Really. But then younger workers are rejecting what they call the 996 formula, which means working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days per week. Instead, they are unplugging. They are cutting down on work hours. They are sometimes quitting jobs and choosing to be present in the moment. It is more than a rebellion, it is a philosophy. A change from putting materialism and work at the center and focusing on minimalism, simplicity, and contentment in everyday life. It has Buddhist principles, such as creating a sense of inner peace, finding joy in small pleasures. It invites them to reevaluate priorities, let go of unnecessary burdens, and focus on what truly matters. We can recognize the significance of self-care and replenishing one's physical and mental, emotional well-being. It sounds like a move to a more spiritual life to me. And that's like Tricia Hersey's nap ministry. What she created was a kind of performance art that moves us to understanding like art can. Put a bed somewhere in public. Invite people to come and take naps on it. It's a slap in the face to our paternalistic, capitalistic culture. We are literally not machines. Our economy acts like we are. Taking naps in public is rebellious. Our bodies are our bodies. They do not belong to the system. Hersey was in graduate school and working and had children, and she was very sleep deprived. And she was trying to do her reading for school, and guess what happened? She kept reading the same lines over and over, and she got frustrated. And then she started taking naps and getting her full nighttime sleep. She took a sabbatical from social media. She began to do her life much better. How did she even think of doing this? It's not that we learn from our culture, is it? Well, Hersey learned from her grandmother. Here is one story from Resting as Resistance, a Manifesto by Tricia Hersey. As a child, I would watch my grandmother, Ora, as she sat on her plastic-covered yellow couch and meditated for 30 minutes every single day. She had fled her home in Mississippi with thousands of other African Americans during the Great Migration of the 1950s. Ora floated up north on a spaceship built of uncertainty and hope as she landed in Chicago. She magically raised 8 children while dodging poverty, racism, and the invisibility of being a black woman in America. Her commitment to resting her eyes every day for 30 minutes was radical. Her ability to demand space to just be was a form of resistance. Hersey's grandmother was a role model for her, and now Hersey and her grandmother can inspire us all. Here are some ways she suggests rest can look like. If one of these speaks to you, I encourage you to jot it down on your order of service, take it home, and put it somewhere where you'll see it this week. Here are some ideas. Closing your eyes for 10 minutes. A longer, slower shower in silence. Meditating on the couch for 20 minutes. Daydreaming and staring out a window. Sipping warm tea before bed in the dark. Slow dancing with yourself to slow music. A sun salutation. A 20-minute timed nap. Praying. Crafting a small altar for your home. Taking regular breaks from social media. Not immediately responding to texts or emails. Deep listening to a full music album. A meditative walk in nature. Knitting, crocheting, sewing, or quilting. Playing a musical instrument. Or laughing intensely. Hersey says that rest simplified her life. and made her know that if she could take to her bed or rest in these other ways, she could do anything. She said, "I keep hearing about the ways we exhaust ourselves to be seen as valuable, and I'm wondering when we will shift to see our own inherent worth. When this happens, we will be closer to liberation." Grind culture harms the community by making it normal to work and go to bed exhausted and get up and work more. The urgent wheel of capitalism spins on, unconcerned with those existing in it. It commodifies whatever it can and doesn't allow space for us to experience the full spectrum of being human. If this speaks to you, you may want to mark your calendar for Saturday, September the 2nd, when there will be labor stories and songs talking about labor and labor power. My final thing I want to talk to you about is a thing called the human giver syndrome. Some of you may identify with this description and others may not, because some of us have this tendency more than others. The syndrome is described in Emily and Amelia Nagasaki's book, Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle, a book I have now read twice. And it comes from Kate Mann's work, in which she says there are human beings and human givers. What is a human giver? Well, if you suffer from one or more of the following beliefs, you probably have it. You believe that you have a moral obligation, that is, you owe it to your family, the world, or even to yourself to be attractive, happy, calm, generous, and attentive to the needs of others. And you believe that a failure to be attractive, happy, calm, generous, and attentive makes you a failure as a person. And that you believe that your failure means that you deserve punishment, even going so far as to beat yourself up. And you believe that these are not symptoms of a syndrome, but normal and true. Within that kind of thinking, where does the need for rest end up? There's guilt for taking time to rest or play or have fun. Such a thing seems selfish. And it is exacerbated when there is so much suffering and so many horrible things happening in the world, right? If you have this syndrome, I invite you to now see it as such, something you were taught from a young age that serves the powers that be, and something that is unsustainable. If you don't have this syndrome, but you know someone who does, pay attention and help this person to get the time off and rest that they need. And I want to speak to the people who have retired. If you have more time off now, you may feel guilty for taking naps. I urge you to enjoy naps and take them as the healing opportunities that they are. For those who don't feel they have any time to nap, I encourage you to reach out for help. Let us all be encouraged to take time to stare out the window or look at a beautiful piece of art or hang out on the porch during the sunrise and be quiet rather than playing a game on our phones or reading the news. These small ways of resting are something to look forward to, and you can put little ones throughout your day. They are known to lead to more happiness and creativity. Remember, this is not only self-care, it's resistance and rebellion. So you have to do it. I want Hersey's words to resonate in our minds. She said, "I kept hearing about the ways we exhaust ourselves to be seen as valuable. And I'm wondering when we will shift to see our own inherent worth. When this happens, we will be closer to liberation." And here in this community, We can encourage each other not to be drawn into grind culture. We can offer support to one another. Some of us have more time available and may find ways to help others who feel squashed by all the responsibilities of the world. We can support living cooperatively and less isolated lives. That is the beauty of a multi-generational, intentional community like ours. May it be so. Amen.